This Blender add-on can almost completely replace some of the functions of Substance Painter and help you texture your objects, so let me show you how. Hey everyone, welcome to my tutorial. Today I will show you the Ucupaint add-on, which helps you to do layered texturing similar to Substance Painter directly in Blender, and I really hope you will enjoy this one, and if you do, please don't forget to leave that like, and if you're new around here, hit that subscribe. Now let's jump right into it, and first of all we'll need some object to texture, and I want to do this classic mailbox. So let's just select the light, press X and delete, and we'll actually use the cube. So select it, tap into the edit mode, and press G then Z and 1 to move this 1 meter up, and now it will be easy to scale it down. So tab out and press S to scale it down to around half a meter. If you press N on the side panel, you will see the dimensions right here. So let's do a few more like this, and now let's press S then Y, scale it on Y axis, and finally we can press Ctrl A and apply the scale so it jumps back to 1. Now tap into the edit mode, select the top vertices, press G then Z and move them up like this. Now press 2 for edge select, select this edge and hold shift select the other one, and we can press Ctrl B to bevel, and after that hit C so we enable clamping so it won't go past the middle here, and let's increase number of cuts with the mouse wheel to something like this. But now we have double vertices here at the top, so press A and M and merge by distance, and you will see we removed 2 vertices. And now let's shape the mailbox. I'll press S then X and scale it just a notch more like this, and now press Ctrl R to create the loop cut right here in the middle, left click and right click to release in place, and press Ctrl B to bevel and reduce the number of cuts with the mouse wheel so we create these side loops like this. And now let's press 1 for vertex select, select these two, press J to join them so it's easier to cut the geometry, and let's do the same thing on the other side. And now let's press Ctrl R and create one more cut here and one more here near the bottom, and now let's press Ctrl R and create one more cut right there, and again we'll release with the right click and press Ctrl B to bevel, and this is basically all the geometry we'll need here. And now let's do some extrusions, so press 3 for face select, and let's select this one, hold Ctrl and go up until, let's say, here, and we'll press Alt E and extrude along normals like this, and now press Y, that will detach this, and press Alt S and scale it back up. So this will be the detached piece of geometry. If you move it, you can see this is now disconnected, but it's part of the same cube object. And now let's select these faces on the side here in the back as well, and press Alt E and extrude along normals. So let's go inside like this, and again we'll press Y to separate this and Alt S to scale it back up. And again, these are now separated pieces. And now some legs. So we can just select these faces at the bottom by holding shift, press Shift D to duplicate them, right click to release in place, and press S to scale them down a little bit like this, and E to extrude. If you just started Blender and you have trouble following all the YouTube tutorials, make sure to check out my courses as well, where in addition to the step-by-step instructions, you also get full in-depth explanation of all the tools and all the steps, and you get to learn everything from simple low poly design all the way to full character illustration, textured environments, hard surface modeling, a little bit of sculpting, and with the latest one, full car modeling and animation. So if you're interested, please check out the link in the description. And now let's enable X-ray view, and here we'll select these top faces, we don't need those, and press X and delete. And now before we start texturing, we need to UV unwrap this, so let's drag a new window right here and let's switch this to UV editor so we can see what happens there. This is actually not so bad, but it would cause some issues with those extrusions, so we'll definitely need some seams. So while still with the X-ray active, let's press 2 for edge select and Alt click this loop right here, hold Alt and Shift, and we'll just add to the selection and do the same thing on the other side, and press U and mark seam right here, and let's mark the bottom as well, so hold Alt key and Alt and Shift here as well, U and mark seam. And now for the legs, it will be quite straightforward. I will start with the inner edges and do just something like this, press U and mark seam, and I'll do it for each of those. And right here as well, and just mark all those seams. Now if you would now unwrap this, you would see there are still some issues, so we'll need to separate some parts. So now let's press 3 for face select, click away to deselect everything, and let's hit L over these parts that are separated. And now press H to hide those. And now press 2 for edge select, look from the front by pressing 1 on a numpad, and we can just select these edges right here. And now we can just hold Ctrl and deselect these in the middle. So only these parts stay selected, and you can mark these as well and do the same thing near the bottom here. Press U and mark seam, and now if you press A to select all and U and unwrap angle based, you should get something like this, but still I think we can do better. So let's look from the front and let's just select these by holding Shift and press U and mark seam. And now these two small edges right there. And now if you unwrap this, this is much better and should texture correctly. Now I'll press Alt H to unhide everything. Let's disable the X-ray view. Let's step out and let's give this some bevel modifier here in the modifiers panel, and let's increase the segments to something like 4 so it's nice and smooth. And in the geometry we'll switch this to arc and enable harden normals, right click and shade smooth, and we'll now reduce the amount to something really small so we only have those nice smooth edges there. So that's our unwrapped mailbox, and let's set up our workspace for texturing. So you can get the Ucupaint add-on right here in the edit preferences. You go get extensions and search for Ucupaint and just click install. There will be a button here, and after it installs you will see it right here when you select some object, and you can do a quick Ucupaint node setup when you have the material on, which we have because we had the cube there. So let's just click this and hit OK. So now we have set this up for painting, but we'll need some additional images and materials. So let's expand one more window right here, and you can download the folder with all the images I have here. In the description there's a link. Just unzip this and move it next to your Blender file, and then just switch this to file browser and navigate to your folder. And you should see something like this. So we can just drag this and collapse on the left side and switch this to thumbnail so you can see your images, and now you can see all the files we'll need for texturing. And let's start by adding the first material. This is from Polyhaven Assets. It's this green rusty painted metal, which is perfect for this kind of asset, and there are multiple ways how you can do that. So in the Ucupaint you can see you have these different channels: your color, your metallic, roughness and normal. And then you have your layers, which are currently empty, and you can just add a new layer. For example, if you change the color, you will change the color of your objects right here, but we don't need to do that. We'll override that with layers. So let's create a new layer, and you can see there are a bunch of different options right here. And one of the basics are image layers, and you can use them one by one. So for example, right here in the file browser there's a great function of the Ucupaint add-on. You can just right click and there's a Ucupaint option right here to open image as layer, and that will open it right here for you and texture your object. But it can be quite tedious to do this for all channels, so let me hit Ctrl Z to go back, and let's just hit the plus sign here and let's do open images to single layer, and let's just select them right here. So I will choose the diffuse, the normal and roughness, and open images to single layer. And now you can see you have 3 images right here, and Ucupaint have a preview mode. So if you enable this, you can preview layer, but you can also preview active mask or custom data. So now if you click through these images right here, you will see your color information, your roughness and your normals, and everything should be set up correctly. So for our diffuse texture, if we check this is set to non-color, so let's set this to sRGB, so we have a correct color information there. But for the rest of those, you can see each layer has its own contribution to those channels. So the way you can think about this, there are these 4 basic channels: your color, metallic, roughness, normal, and each layer you add can contribute to all of those, or just one of them, or none. So you add those layers and you choose which layer contributes to which channel. So for example, this layer right here, you can see it contributes to all 4 channels right here, even the metallic, which we don't need actually here. So I will just disable this. And now here you can see for the roughness, we have a custom image set, and that's this other icon right here. And same for the normal. This is overridden by another image. That's why we can have 3 images in one layer. So that's the basic material. We can just exit the preview mode and we can now start playing with the color, because I want this to be blue. So for the color texture, you have this small modifier right here, and you can choose to change hue saturation of this. And now basically just shift this into whatever color you want. For example, something blue like that, but it shifts everything here, so you can see it kind of created these really saturated spots. So we can create a new layer right here, and we can do solid color, hit OK. You can see we kind of overridden everything, but if you change the color here, you will see the normal and roughness information are still there from the layer from below. So we are only overriding this color channel, but we can change the mix to, for example, color mode. And now we have the same image information from below. We're just able to change its color. And now you can see there are no spots there because we are overriding the whole color channel with the color overlay mode. Now the next cool thing we can do is to use decals and make them affect whatever channel we want. So I have this mail icon right here that I want to emboss on the front of the mailbox. So we can just right click this and we can open image as decal layer. And instead of color, we can have it affect normal, but I will show you how to switch that later. So let's just hit OK. And now it looks like this, but there's a gizmo added by the add-on. If you expand your outliner, you will see there's a decal empty. And you can now just press R, X and 90 to rotate this. And we can move this in front. So press G, then Y, move it right here, and then G, then Z, and move it right there. And now if you scale this, you're able to place the decals wherever on your object, just like this. And now if you select the mailbox again to see the setup, you can see the vector information is set to decal. So for example, on the textures, the vector was set to UVs. That's why it mapped correctly to our UV map. But here with the mail, we choose the decal option, and you can use whatever mapping you already know from Blender. So for example, generated, object, whatever, and the decal option will create this setup for you. Now let's make this a little bit larger. And now let's select the mailbox again. And I want to set this to affect only the normal map. I want this to be embossed. So I will disable the color information and enable bump. Now you can see we have something similar, and here the type is set to bump map. So because we don't have the true normal map of this, we only have black and white information. So that's what we need. And you can of course change the height to make it inverted. But the better option here would be to just select the modifier and choose to invert, and it will behave correctly and extrude this outwards. And you can now modify the strength a little bit, just like this, and continue your placement of the decal. Now, since this is mapped to a whole object, it might create artifacts like this. You can see this is the edge of the image, and we of course don't want that, but we can mask the decal to just one part of the object. So if you select this, you can create the mask on whatever layer you want. So down here, if we collapse our channels, there's a mask option. So let's create a new one. And let's just create a new image mask right here. And I think 1K will be just fine, but we'll change this from white, which says full opacity, to black full transparency. So this will effectively hide this. So let's hit OK. And now this is gone, and you can see the black mask is there. But now just tap into the edit mode. We can go for face select, select the front face, tab out, and let's hit Ctrl Tab to go into the texture paint mode, or you can switch the mode right here. And now instead of manually painting this, we can just color fill what we want. But if you click this button, remember we already have a selection there, it will limit our painting to our selection, and we can hit the paint bucket tool, press X to switch color between black and white, and just click once. And now this will basically color this part on our UV map and mask out our decal only for the front. So if you now go to the object mode again. Now this only gets shown on the front here. And now I would like to have some procedural edge wear here on the side, and Ucupaint Addon can help you with that, but it's not that powerful as in Substance Painter, where you have all of these like automatic generators for damage and edge wear. So we need to help ourselves with a little bit of a noise texture. So let's create a new solid color layer right here, and we can leave this white, no problem, and let it affect only the color. And to better navigate this, let's rename some of these. So this will be the paint, this will be the color layer, and this is the emboss, and this will be edge wear. And I will basically apply this white color only to the edges here, but before we'll need to create a noise mask. So let's hit plus here on the mask, and let's create a noise texture here. And for the vector, let's use object and hit OK. Now you can see we have some noise. So we'll increase the detail all the way to 15 and a little bit of roughness, and of course the scale. And additionally, we can also add some modifiers for the masks, like the invert or ramp, which is very convenient because now we can compress this information like this and create a noise texture. Now, if we go closer a little bit, I think this is maybe too rough, so let's do something like this, and let's go down with the scale to something like that. I think this will work nicely. And now we'll add additional mask here. You can layer these, you can stack them, and we'll use the edge detect mask right there. And let's just hit OK. And we'll see now this is only masking on edges. If we disable the noise, you will see the mask in full, and we can set the strength here. So I want something like this, for example, something like 0.015, and you can also use previous normal information, so see what that does. Because right now this is affecting only the model but not the embossed part, but if you use previous normal you will get the mask on your new normal information as well. And now if you enable the noise, you can have something like this. You can see the noise is only appearing on the edges there, and we can modify the strength here, and we can also further modify our noise texture like this and play with the scale. And now I want to show you how you can do some manual damage as well, with basically just painting. So let's create a new layer, solid color, okay, and right here and here I want to affect all of the channels. So I want to affect metallic as well. You will see this will create this nice metal, and I want to affect roughness, and I want to use custom value here. You don't need to use layer color, and you can just reduce the roughness like this. And also for the metallic you can use custom value and change this if you wouldn't want this to be metallic, but I want this, so we can leave this to layer color. And now let's enable bump as well, and we'll use mask of course, and I want to use image mask, and I want to again hide everything, so I will use black color, but here I will increase this to 2K and just hit OK. So now this is gone, but now we have this layer active right here. You can see it in the UV editor, and if I go into the texture paint again and choose brush, and let's disable this paint mask so we can paint everywhere. But if I try to paint here, this is not behaving, because in the mask you have to set the vector to UV. And now you can place your brush strokes, and just like this you can just create the brush stroke and put all of that information that we set up on that piece of your model. But here I want the bump to go inwards, so let's go minus here on the bump. And additionally, some more sophisticated brushes would be in order here, but this is out of the scope of the tutorial. You can see the brush shelf in the latest Blender versions. Right there you can create your own custom brushes, and I made a short video about this, so I will link it in the description, and there you will see how you can set up your own custom brush using your custom alpha. And for example, here I have this grunge brush that I created. You can see it has these jagged edges, which is exactly what I want, because right now we can do a painting like this. And now press F to make this larger, and modify the strength. And now press X to switch the color and unpaint some of the things that we've done. And of course we can reduce the strength and we can paint back in some of those details. Maybe the strength is too much still, so we can just click in some of the damage like this. And if you do the strength really small, you can create something like that. And then again, you can unmask this. And basically create nice random damage. And basically this way create all kinds of interesting details in your texture, and you can layer multiple of these. You can create dirt like this, for example, when you set the bump in the opposite way and increase your roughness and stuff like that. So yeah, that's some manual damage here, manual painting, let's call this damage here. And now let's exit the texture paint mode. Let's save the file, don't forget about that, so you don't lose all your precious work. And we can now have more fun with some decals. Let's create yet another layer, and let's use solid color. And let's set this to like orange or yellow. And we'll mask it out using the decal. You can see the ink decal I have right here, so I can just right click, Ucupaint, and open image as decal mask instead of layer. And it will basically assigned as a mask to my existing solid color layer, and I can now just select the empty, press RX 90 to rotate 90 degrees, move it outside here and make it smaller by pressing S, and move it around like this to create this kind of paint splatter on the side of my object like this. But we can go even further because now this affects only the color information. So we can now select the layer and we can have it affect also another channel like roughness, and we can use custom value and just reduce this to really something small, so you'll see it will be now glossy. And of course we can adjust some bump as well. And now you can see the black and white image will affect the bump as well. So you get this like real tangible paint splatter here, and you can modify the height and strength of this, and still you are able to move this anywhere on your model. And now finally I would like to add some dirt at the bottom. They'll be a little bit more complicated, a little bit more masking, and it will be a little bit more procedural, but it will show you how effective this can be. So even if you don't have all of these like automatic generators like you have in Substance Painter, you can create a lot of them, at least approximately. So for example, you could see how we created this edge wear or edge mask, and now we'll create the gradient dirt map. So let's create a new layer. And let's set this to something dark and dirty like this. Okay, and of course we'll want to affect the roughness as well, and we want to use custom value and set this all the way to 1, so we want a rough dirt. And now let's create the mask, and we'll do a gradient one, and let's map this to object. Let's hit OK. And we won't see anything here, so let's use preview mode, and we can select the active mask right here. If you have this active mask option selected, you can just click through these different layers you have there, which is really convenient. So with this gradient mask, we need to rotate this, of course. So in the vector option, let's rotate this -90 degrees on y-axis, and let's move it up a little bit. And of course, for the gradient, you can use easing so it's not so compressed like this. And then you can scale it. So for example, if we scale it on X and then move down a little bit, so it's a little bit softer, maybe we can go lower and not do so dramatic scaling like this. And now we can further mask this out with a noise. So let's create another one. Let's create a noise. Let's hit OK. And we'll disable this for a second. And you can again just click here so you can see your noise mask. And we don't want the noise color, we want the noise factor, we want this to be black and white. And again, we'll increase the scale a little bit and the detail and maybe a little bit of a roughness. But now we'll scale this up as well. So in the vector, we'll scale this on Z-axis and reduce on X and Y like this. So we get these like noise streaks. And then if you enable your underlying mask and switch this one from multiply to, for example, divide, we can now exit preview mode and see what this does. And you can see we have some dirt on the top here with those visible streaks, but we want to invert this. So we'll just invert this whole mask right here. And now you get something like this. And again, if you go into the preview mode and now select the invert, you will see this is the mask you have here, and you can further modify this. So for example, I would want this to be a little bit more rough. So let's do a ramp modifier as well here. And let's compress this a little bit. And again, we'll need to click this to preview. And let's do something like this. Okay. And now we can really see what's happening here. Like that. And now we can go back to our original masks and tweak them. So for example, you can change the gradient scale here. And of course, move it up and down. Or you can do the same thing here. You can stretch that noise or compress it down a little bit. And change the scale as well. Like this. And when you're satisfied with it, I want to go a little bit lower like this. You can now disable the preview mode and you will see what happens on your model. You now have this dirt layer down here with those streaks. I think we can push this a little bit higher up, maybe somewhere here. Okay. And finally, I would like to adjust overall roughness here a little bit. So let's create a new solid color, but let's influence only the roughness. And let's reduce saturation. And I want to move this under the dirt like this. And yeah, let's make this a little bit more rough like this. So there's a little bit of a reflection. But of course, now we are overriding the roughness of our ink, so we'll need to move this up. So now you can see the ink is again nice and glossy. And now finally, this will be the part where you go in and modify some of these changes. So maybe the edge wear is a little bit too much, so you can go in and make it a little bit more subtle and play with the scale of that noise as well. But overall, I really like this. So that's it for the texturing in Ucupaint. Of course, there are more tools here available. So for example, you can bake all channels and it will create PBR textures from the setup you painted. And then you can just use it, export it in your game engine or wherever you want to use this. So that's it for the painting with Ucupaint in Blender. I really hope you enjoyed this one. And again, if you did, please leave that like. And if you want to learn more with Blender, hit that subscribe. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.